Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my spoilery gush for Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. As I said, this video will have spoilers in it, so if you've not read this book, go ahead and check out my spoiler-free review, which will be linked on the screen. So I obviously loved and adored this book, which is very expected and typical for me. I was cautiously optimistic about this one, but I honestly do not feel it disappointed at all. I loved so many things about this. So I talked about in my review that I love the diversity of this cast, and I continue to love the diversity of this cast, and I feel like a lot of things get expanded even more in this book. I love Kaz and Inej as characters, and Inej is my favorite character. Like, miles above Kaz, honestly. But Kaz is obviously my second favorite. And the fact that both of them are survivors of trauma, have PTSD, that Inej is a slavery and rape survivor, and that she is so incredibly strong, and she is gone through so much, and I just love both of them and their experiences of trauma and overcoming that, separately and together. As a team, but again, also as individuals. Like, they both have gone through so much, and particularly Kaz's character development is so on point. Like, all the character development is so on point. But I feel like Kaz has always been and continues to be an anti-hero. He's not necessarily a good person. He's not a good person. He does lots of bad shit. But he finds pieces of his humanity, and not even necessarily for Inej, although she does help him do that, and almost motivate him to do that, I guess. He just becomes a slightly better person, but still remains true to himself. He doesn't turn into just like this bowl of jello that doesn't have a backbone anymore at the end of the series so that he can be with a girl. Like, no, he is still very much his own character, and she is still very much her own character. Like, again, she wasn't just going to back down and be with him and just do whatever and, like, stay in Ketterdam. Like, she does stay around, but now she has her slave ship, and she's going to go and do what she wants to do, and him freeing her was selfish in a way because he loves her and he wants her to, like, be around and whatever, but also he's like, I want to free her so she can go and do her thing. And, like, honestly, your OTP could never. Like, it's so good. Like, their whole teamwork thing and the fact that they are equals, that they are both so incredibly badass, that they both, like, work off one another. There's so many scenes with them where, especially in, like, fighting scenes, where they almost are like the couple, like, back-to-back fighting sequence in a way. Like, obviously it wasn't exactly like that, but they work so well together, and they always have each other's back, and it's such a great team aspect. Like, Kaz has a line at one point about how, like, no matter what, they would, like, fight their way out together. It's just like, yes, bless. They're so good. And when we do get a lot more of, like, especially Inej's trauma history, like, I loved her before, and I love her even more now, because we have two characters who have a trauma history that impacts a lot of aspects of their personality and of their romantic relationship. And you don't get to see a ton of that. If anything, you only get to see, like, the wounded girl. And in this case, she's dealing with it better, and she is able to kind of help him. I could go on and on, honestly. Like, the ending, when I kind of predicted that he might get her, like, a ship, because obviously his whole thing is, like, I want to, like, set you free kind of thing. But then when he brought her parents, like, stop. I did not expect that. I was, like, crying. I just love them so much, and the fact that he knows that, and again, that's his, like, sliver of humanity, and it's kind of an echo of the Grisha trilogy. There's a line in the Grisha trilogy, if you haven't read it, it's not a spoiler, but it's just, you might make me a better man, and you might make me a monster, and it's kind of like a mirror of that, in a way, because, like, she makes him a better person, and he makes her, he doesn't make her, but, like, she's become slightly more monstrous in a way, but they've really come into their own and are, like, stripping off their armor. I need to stop because there's so much that I could talk about with them, but I love them so much. Also, as I've mentioned, I really enjoy the friendships. Like, Nina and Inej were so friendship goals in this book. Like, also borderline, in my head, a little gay, like, not gonna lie. I just loved them. Like, all the interactions that they had, and they were just so, like, indicative of female friendships. Like, when they saw each other, they would give each other hugs, they would, like, rest their heads on each other's shoulders. Like, it was, there was so much with them that was even better than the first book, because you had those elements in the first book, but then in this book you had so much more with them, and it was such a strong female friendship. Like, they weren't only talking about boys, they were both, like, fierce warrior queens, and it was, they were like a teamwork friendship. Like, they've pulled each other through so much, and it was amazing, and I loved that. I also really loved Inej and Jesper's friendship. Obviously I love a lot of these because Inej is my favorite character, but I also really love Inej and Jesper's friendship from the beginning as well. I liked them, but that they both kind of relate in a way sometimes through Kaz, and that Inej is just like the mom of the group because she is so wise for her age, and she like helps them learn things about themselves in a lot of ways and doesn't judge them. Like the whole talk that they had about forgiveness and the line that she said about like, this action will not have an echo. I'm gonna tattoo that shit on my body. Like, it sounds so cool. It's such a good concept. Like, you don't just ask for forgiveness. You're not gonna do that again. You're gonna make yourself better. And like, Jesper learned so much in this book to being a better person and discovering more about himself and his powers. So good. I liked getting his backstory with his mom and all the things that she did and his culture, and you see a ton more about him being biracial and having two kind of warring cultures that he's a part of. It felt just so real to have like different kinds of folk stories. Like, not everybody is going to call Grisha Grisha, you know, like they're going to have different meanings and the different kind of tales about them and stuff, which was really cool. I did like getting more of Wyland. Wyland is not my favorite character by any means, but I liked seeing him more than I thought I would as far as a POV character. We learned so much more about him again. He's such a smart character. He's so sweet, and I like that the LGBTQ plus couple was like had the happiest ending. Like, it made me so happy, and I didn't think that Lee was going to, like, use the barrier gaze trope. Like, I was pretty confident that she wouldn't, but I'm just so happy that she didn't, and that they got a happy ending, because you just don't see that. Like, especially this year, we've had so many characters who fall on the spectrum getting killed and not having happy endings or breaking up or whatever, and I'm sick of seeing it. And they are happy, and they're like the most fluffy couple, and I love it. The whole thing about Wyland's mom, I didn't see coming, but I like how Van Eck became a really despicable villain, and a believable villain. Like, he turned into a person who was just like, oh, you're kind of a bad businessman, to like, oh my god, you're so awful. And just kind of like pulling those bricks away and seeing this person who's terrible just getting destroyed, and how they kind of roped together Pekka and Van Eck, because at the beginning I was like, we have a lot of villains going on, right? Like, we have a lot of things happening, but they kind of made them like one entity to take down, which was really good. And it made it so there weren't really any like loose ends to tie up at the end of this, which was really good. Obviously, lastly, I want to talk about Nina and Matthias. Nina is another one of my favorite characters, obviously like right below Kaz, if not like equal to him. And the fact that she has like controlling the dead necromancy abilities now, like, God bless. I just love that shit so much, and she really came into her own again. I would have loved to see even more of that, but I honestly feel like Nina will pop up in future Grisha books. Like, I have a theory that I'll kind of share at the end, but I think that we're not, obviously we haven't seen the end of her and her abilities, and how kind of dark she could have gotten, but she didn't. Like, I think it would have been really easy to go really dark with her, and Lee didn't really take it there, and I actually kind of respect her for that, because the character kind of going down that dark path is used a lot, and I like seeing it. I'm always a fan, but I'm glad that it kind of didn't go that way, because it was a little more predictable. Between her and Jesper, who are both battling an addiction of some kind, I thought that was really cool to show different kinds. It's not just about like drug addiction, that there's also different kinds of things like gambling addictions, and her kind of overcoming that was really cool. Again, showed a pillar of her strength, and is just an issue that we don't really get to see a ton of unless you're kind of looking at like dark YA contemporary or something. So I really liked that element, and her and Matthias's relationship. I will say that I found the Matthias death to be incredibly predictable. Like, I just saw it coming from a mile away from the first book, and after we started getting hints that someone was going to die in this series, I was like, it's Matthias. Like, I just didn't think that any of the people of color were going to get killed, which is something that I didn't want to happen anyway. I didn't think that any of the gay characters were going to get killed. I didn't think that the disabled character was going to get killed. So that really only leaves Matthias, and at times I felt like he had served his role. I don't want to kind of dissolve him into just like, he serves a purpose, because I do think he's a well-rounded character. I liked getting all of his backstory. I liked the whole wolf story. At the same time, I almost felt like, and obviously I haven't done like the research on this to like count, but I almost feel like he didn't have that many chapters, and his chapters were very much revolving around like what Nina and stuff was doing. So I just feel like we weren't really seeing like, what are you gonna do after? You know, like we weren't really getting that, so I felt like it was kind of predictable, and I am torn about his death. On one hand, I kind of am mad that he didn't get to go out in like a hero's death kind of thing. Like, I kind of was thinking that he was going to sacrifice himself for the good of the group, and that would be like a whole 180 from him like hating all of them and thinking he's like above all of them to finally being like, I'm going to sacrifice my life for these people. So I kind of wanted that to happen, but at the same time, that is incredibly predictable. So the fact that we have a character die like off the battlefield, so to speak, down an alley from a person that they never see again, not in front of like the main boss battle or anything like that, I think is very real and very true, and that's what happens. And just the fact that all of the characters, their reaction to that, like, they all thought that they were all going to survive. And none of them died, like, in the battle, and he just died, like, being shot by one of his, like, someone that could have been him, you know? And it's crazy, and I kind of like that. Like, it wasn't a predictable ending, and you still had that sense of loss, because I complain a lot about books not having enough loss, and again, this book series, like, it could have had more, but at the same time, these characters are all so clever and so smart that I feel like even more death just for the sake of death wouldn't have been realistic, but they had to lose someone. Like, they had to lose someone. This is so incredibly dangerous, both these books. They had to lose someone. They're in a really brutal world. But it worked for this, so I don't feel like there wasn't enough loss, and I am sad about Matthias, but I'm also like, you know, that makes sense to me. I loved all of the Grisha references we got. So in the first book, obviously, we get a ton, but in this book, we actually have characters. Like, let me fucking tell you. When Stormhund showed up, so Nikolai, when my little baby Nikolai showed up, I almost started crying. I was like, oh my god, and out loud, I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. And I don't talk when I'm reading, but I was, because I was so like, this is not happening. Like, I fully thought that we might see like Genya and Zoya because they were mentioned in the first book, but I didn't think we'd get Nikolai, and when it happened, like, chills. I'm so glad the series, like, brought the other series into it, and we have, like, Alina being mentioned, and we have these other characters that we know and loved from the first series showing up. And it was so exciting, like, I cannot get over it, and I just love that, and it really opened up the possibilities of future books, which is why I think there will be more in the future, obviously. The endings for all the characters left it so that I think it's really obvious that we will get more. Obviously, we have Kaz and Nikolai having interaction, so it's very easy to pull these characters into, like, another Grisha kind of story, and we have Nina going home, and I think that's another reason that Matthias kind of left, because yes, she could have gone with him, and they would have worked together and stuff like that, but I feel like she always would have felt a sense of, like, I shouldn't. And they kind of always still had that disagreement about what they're gonna do, so this kind of freed her and allowed her to do more. And I also sort of feel like, and this is Sarah Jane's fault because she planted it in my head before it even happened, that I could totally see, like, a Nina and Nikolai thing. I totally could, and I'd be there for it. Like, so there for it. So there for it. But I think a lot of their interactions could leave that open as well. You know, she's going back and being a Grisha, and we have, like, you know, the characters going their separate ways, but also lines of communication remaining open. They can all be pulled back in, and just, it's perfect for having a future series with all the characters in them. I would actually love for the future series to be adult, because at that point, like, especially the Grisha kids are all going to be, like, mid to late 20s by the time that series comes out. So I would like that to be an adult series, because honestly, this series should be adult, to be completely frank. Like, these characters I do not see as, like, 16, 17. No. Like, I read these characters as mid-20s. No, I don't believe that they're 16, 17. Like, no. But I'm definitely looking forward to future Grisha books, obviously, and I think that Lee did a good job of leaving everything open. I am so excited about my babies, Kaz and Inej, especially because she's the Wraith Queen. Like, God bless. God bless. And I'm excited to see what happens with Nina in the future, because I know that's not the end of her, and her abilities, which are so different and so cool. And I'm just happy that Wyland and Jesper are just happy, and, like, I just have a lot of feelings about it, and I just love them so, so much. So I'm probably forgetting a ton of things, but this series and this book especially just completely blew me away. I was never able to predict anything. I never saw anything coming, and I'm constantly in awe of Kaz's character and his scheming and his tricks. Like, they are realistic, like, they all make sense, and there's not any kind of, like, hand of God coming and saving them kind of things. Like, it's all their intelligence saving them, always. So it's so cool, and the series is so good, and I'm so sad it's over. I'm actually kind of in denial about it being over. Like, on one hand, I'm going through a crisis about it being over, and this other hand, I'm like, it's not over. Like, it's not over. It's not over, right? I mean, I'm still in denial that the Grisha trilogy's over. I'm never going to see Alina again. Yep, after, like, almost 2 years, still being like, Alina's gonna be in the next book, and, like, have her, it's gonna be fine. So comment down below, let me know what you thought of Crooked Kingdom. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.